Good job.
It's funny because we had a conversation with Will
YouTube.
last weekend, and he was
We
asking about babies. I told him he could never run.
Here on Sunday, July 10th, 2022,
in the course of the conversation,
with Sunday morning news,
there are some kids that are just so unequivocally cute.
I am going to turn it over to Joey Jones.
That's very nice.
My favorite.
You know what, though? That's
Hope you guys are having a great morning.
Without further ado, real deal.
Yeah.
There are
back
some
in a few
babies that
buds.
are not cute.
I love babies.
You know, there are very cute babies, like my brother's son, Micah, who's sleeping in our house right now, is the model baby. He could be Jesus if you put his fingers. He's a porcelain doll. Okay, he's absolutely beautiful. That's very Catholic.
That's what I was just saying. There's so much Catholic curiosity.
I could not be.
Some are not that cute.
I don't have two fingers to hold it.
You can't be Jesus. Sorry.
Oh my goodness.
All right, let's move on.
Yeah. We are glad you're here, though. It is Sunday morning, July 10th, right?
Mm-hmm.
I just have to keep note. It's summer, so enjoy it every single day you can.
Oh,
absolutely.
It's beautiful outside, and we're going to get outside, by the way.
We are.
It's National Pina Colada Day.
Ooh,
Is it really?
National Pina Colada
we're
Day?
celebrating.
In the 6 a.m. hour, so the rest of the show should be fun.
I propose we start in the 6 a.m., but before that, we have to go, sadly.
Okay. All right. Well,
we have to get to the news before the Pina Coladas. And there is a lot of news because Joe Biden is going to be going to Saudi Arabia, and he feels the need. And by the way, he's going to Saudi Arabia basically to beg for oil.
Yep.
Because he doesn't want America to be energy independent, as we were just, I guess, 2 years ago. He wants to beg the Saudis, and he feels the need to explain why he's going to Saudi Arabia because he had a lot of not nice things to say about Saudi Arabia, and he wrote an op-ed about that.
Did he write it? Come on.
Okay, so his staff wrote an op-ed that he signed off from his basement somewhere, and here's what it says. It says, from the start, my aim was to reorient but not rupture relations with the country that's been a strategic partner for 80 years. Today, Saudi Arabia has helped to restore unity among the 6 countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council and is now working with my experts to help stabilize oil markets with other OPEC producers. I know that there are many who disagree with my decision to travel to Saudi Arabia. My views on human rights are clear and long-standing, and fundamental freedoms are always on the agenda when I travel abroad, as they will be during this trip, just as they will be in Israel and the West Bank. As president, it is my job to keep our country strong and secure.
Well,
I have so many problems with what I just read. Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's not doing any of those things. He's not keeping anyone secure or safe. This guy needs to be impeached, and Kamala Harris is a fucking joke, right? I mean, I really don't know how else to put it. You got a pile of crap and then a pile of shit. And what do you pick one, you pick the other, you pick both. I mean, either way, you're left with a pile of nothing. Just a pile of fucking crap. And that's what you get from this Joe Biden administration, and I'm sorry.
Mostly with the omission of China.
I apologize.
In the human rights discussion, but I'll let you guys take it from here.
Yeah, for all of America.
Is this an equivalency of Saudi Arabia to Israel? And so also, listen, it is a grown-up point of view of, hey, we have to work with people that don't treat their people the way we treat our people.
Of course.
But you can't be a hypocrite in that. You're welcome.
Cherry Hills, Howard Lorton Furniture and Design offers Colorado's best selection of fine furniture.
Do they?
Either you can't condemn it when it's convenient and then try to gloss over it when it's convenient. And I think that's what people appreciate about Trump. I never felt like Trump tried to sell us a bad bill of goods on who he was working with, from North Korea to Saudi Arabia. If he thought he could get something done that would benefit the American people, he never used words to paint himself into a corner he couldn't get back out of. But when you get into office, basically virtue signaling the whole way there, it makes it real tricky when you have to actually do the job.
That's a great point. That's why you have to write an op-ed written by someone else before you travel overseas.
Could you imagine?
It's like a permission slip.
Could you imagine Trump writing an op-ed to explain himself to anyone?
To anything, to anyone.
That's exactly right. I feel great when Saudi Arabia is working with Joe Biden's experts. That's what I'm saying. My experts are working with them to stabilize the markets. It's going great so far. You're exactly right. This entire trip is about begging for oil. Doesn't have to happen. It's also it has no strategic significance in that when Donald Trump went to Saudi Arabia, which he did on his first overseas trip, it was part of a triangulation that really none of us saw coming.
Yeah.
That had Israel's benefit in mind.
Exactly.
It created a whole new renaissance in the Middle East that created partnerships for Israel, a recognition of the Jewish state, which hadn't really been codified at all by those Gulf states. In this case, they're working on an Iran deal, which thankfully has failed because they're trying to work with Russia as the intermediary as they condemn Russia for a war in Ukraine. So that's not really working. And at the same time, empowering Iran in the process. Now they're begging for oil and apologizing for going there in the first place, while using terms like Israel and the West Bank, which itself is totally loaded language. Yeah. Israel would reject that. They're trying to move the consulate, the embassy out of Jerusalem if they could. I mean, they're trying to undo everything Donald Trump did.
For no other reason than because Donald Trump did it. And that's what's so frustrating about it.
And by the way, it's not Saudi Arabia is not the only evil, dictatorship that he's, going to beg for oil from. He's also going to Nicolas Maduro in Venezuela. And in Latin America, many of the leaders there are saying, why are you doing this? You're, quote, nourishing Satan by buying oil from Venezuela, and we don't need to do it. It's under our feet, which is what Donald Trump had to say yesterday in Alaska.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, he's also yelling at gas station owners, saying lower your prices, even though they make like a penny a gallon on what they actually charge. You mentioned it, Rachel. Donald Trump was in Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska. He talked about Joe Biden's war against energy. Listen.
We also issued the first ever leases for oil and gas production in the region. Never happened. Unfortunately, the Biden administration canceled those leases, and now our entire country is paying a very steep price, not only at the pump, all over. And as our great fishermen will tell you, the soaring cost of fuel is a disaster for Alaska fishers, risking putting them virtually out of business. We are no longer energy independent or energy dominant, which we were just 2 short years ago. We are a nation that is begging Venezuela and Saudi Arabia for oil. Please give us oil. We have more liquid gold under our feet than any other nation in the world, but we're begging them for oil.
He's so right. I mean, talk about all the different repercussions. He's saying it's impacting the fishing industry in Alaska. It's impacting so many industries. It's not just restaurants and your grocery bill. It's all across. Anybody who uses oil, which is used in everything,
Joe Biden,
and gas. It's absolutely disrupting our economy. And there's no reason.
Plug in your electric car too.
Exactly.
Electric
the most frustrating thing.
Your electric cars and Teslas and shit, those are made from fucking slave labor and batteries that are so bad for the environment. So don't sit here and tell me, oh, go green, go green. It's all a bunch of fucking bullshit. So are these gas prices, and so is this bullshit president. And if anyone else
about all this is a dishonesty from this administration on our oil and gas problem.
Idiot.
When they march out and say, "Oh, there's 9,000 leases," to not tell the truth of what those leases mean and why that's not the reason we could produce more oil. The idea that they say, "Well, we're producing more oil than we ever had." Yeah, well, we were already on a trend, and then 2020 happened, and nobody used anything, so the demand is not comparable to where our production was before. So production has to go up. There are a lot of things that are dishonest about this. There were 6 liquid natural gas terminal permits waiting to be signed. 3 of them were already built, and that's one of our cleanest exports we could do. And so the different things they've done to stifle, slow down, take investment out of, and he promised to do it, oil and natural gas, and then to turn around and act, well, it's not our fault.
But Joey, why is it any less of an environmental sin to get it from Saudi Arabia and Venezuela than it is to just get it from our own country, which absolutely has higher standards in terms of
even beyond that, with all due respect, my people in Georgia can't afford to worry about the environment today. But if you give them an opportunity, they'll pay it forward for tomorrow. That's a problem. It's this way with immigration. It's this way with the environment. With Democrats, it's all or nothing. And with conservatives, we want to take steps towards it.
Right now. I think it's about putting ideology ahead of people. And we're going to see this in other
guys are
stories that we're going to
fucking
cover
stupid.
today as well. But this is, I think, the legacy of the Democrats. They put ideology over regular people. They're willing to impoverish you, make you poor.
If you believe
in order
this
to
crap,
get their
you're a
agenda
fucking
forward.
idiot.
Yeah, Joey, everything you just said makes you eminently more qualified to be the Energy Secretary of the United States
That's so true.
than Granholm is right
I'm
now.
sorry, YouTube. I'm just mad
Sure.
right now.
All right, now to this. Wild protests at a presidential palace leading the Sri Lankan prime minister and president to resign as the country deals with a severe economic crisis. That's the presidential palace?
Yep, that's where they're partying it up. And this is another story of putting ideology ahead of people. The prime minister agreeing to step down once a new government is formed, and the president says he'll resign on Wednesday.
Ashley Strohmeyer's here with the unbelievable video.
Yeah, guys, it's pretty crazy. The unrest over the economic crisis reached a literal boiling point yesterday, with leaders set to resign after tens of thousands of demonstrators from all over the country stormed the president's office to protest the nation's crippling economic crisis. Now, some protesters even finding their way to the president's pool, where they jumped in for a little bit of a swim there. Another group barging through police barricades and setting the prime minister's private home on fire. The prime minister tweeting, quote, "To ensure the continuation of the government, including the safety of all citizens, I accept the best recommendation of the party leaders today to make way for an all-party government. To facilitate this, I will resign as prime minister." Sri Lankans are experiencing a severe fuel shortage as the country stopped receiving oil shipments in recent weeks, forcing school closures and stopping non-essential services. Well, in June, soaring inflation hit a shocking 54.6% as citizens faced severe food shortages and police
That's
firing
terrible.
shots in the air during the protests,
Good job,
but were not
Joe.
able to stop the protesters. At least 39 people, including 3 police officers, were hurt. Back to you guys.
So thank you, Ashley. So the leader of this country said, we're going to do all organic farming.
Oh, really?
And they banned all fertilizer that was not organic, anything synthetic. The farmers couldn't transition. Well, crop yields dropped, the pandemic hit. I mean, it was all of this. And the people who were encouraging him to do this said the protection of human health, because they said that these synthetics, fertilizers, right, health, would hurt people's health. The protection of human health and environment should take immediate precedence or any concerns about reduced crop yields and consequent shortages of food supplies. Look how that turned out.
To your point, there's no incrementalism at all in improvements. It's all or nothing at the beginning, and people suffer.
Listen, and what's so frustrating about this? There's a bill that a bunch of Republicans just signed on to take the basically the excise tax we use to conserve, so that we can hunt and fish. 58 Republicans signed on to it because they didn't take the time to read it, and the name of the bill sounds good. And when you govern that way, when we govern at this pace, Democrats on the other side, they sign on to bills and they don't take a moment to think, how does this affect an actual constituent? But in the big picture from 30,000 feet, oh, this is fantastic. We're going to get rid of coal. We're going to get rid of liquid natural gas or whatever. And what it does, it just leaves people in these dire situations, in this case, an entire country.
Yeah. All right, well, we're going to turn now to your headlines. Former Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe's suspected assassin is set to be charged with murder today. Police finding a number of homemade firearms at the suspect's home, similar to the weapon used to kill Abe during a campaign speech Friday. The assassination raising security concerns for police, who say a lapse in protection allowed the shooter to get too close. Abe's funeral will be held Tuesday for close friends and family, and a vigil will be held tomorrow night. A retired 3-star general, Gary Valesky, is now suspended from a mentorship program after tweeting out a sarcastic comment to First Lady Jill Biden. I didn't know that was illegal in our country.
Apparently.
Wow.
Yeah.
The First Lady's original tweet saying, for nearly 50 years, women have had the right to make our own decisions about our own bodies. Today, that right was stolen from us. Valesky replied saying, glad to see you finally know what a woman is. I think he deserves a promotion.
He does. I want that guy leading troops.
Me too.
Okay?
It has since been deleted. By the way, his credentials are amazing. It's just It's unbelievable.
You saw what Hunter Biden said about Joe Biden, right?
Oh, yeah.
You can't use that on TV.
He's not getting canceled. All right. Lightning doesn't just brighten up the sky. That's why we love them. As one tree in Ohio gets struck and burns from the inside out, firefighters were called to the scene on Tuesday to see the tree trunk glowing with red-hot flames. I'm sorry, I keep thinking about Hunter Biden's comment.
Yeah.
According to the Purdue Forestry and National Resource Department, the temperature of the lightning flash was 5 times hotter than the sun, causing the tree to explode from within. That is crazy. Unbelievable. All right, and those are your headlines.
Some movie stuff right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can't report what Hunter said about Jill, but you can look it up on the internet. Not you kids.
not the
adults.
Kids.
All right.
Not the kids.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
All right, still ahead. Abortion activists hitting the streets of D.C. for the Women's March. Their message for Joe Biden. As AOC gets called out for mocking Justice Kavanaugh for getting chased out of a restaurant.
And this exhibit is supposed to honor a founding father, while visitors of Thomas Jefferson's estate are calling out bias against the President of the United States.
Welcome back. Well, pro-abortion activists marching to Joe Biden's front door yesterday, demanding he declare a, quote, public health emergency following the overturning of Roe v. Wade.
And as Supreme Court justices face continued harassment, AOC mocks Justice Kavanaugh for getting chased out of a restaurant.
Alexandria Hoff is live in Washington with more. Alexandria.
Good morning, guys. Yeah, protesters wore green bandanas. They really became a symbol of the pro-abortion movement, and thousands marched in the rain to the gates of the White House yesterday, demanding that President Biden do more following the Supreme Court's returning the issue of abortion to the states. Some reportedly were actually tied themselves to the gates of the White House there. The crowd also turned up earlier in the week outside of a D.C. restaurant where Justice Brett Kavanaugh was eating. He was enforced to leave out the back of the building. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has mocked this moment, tweeting, "Poor guy, he left before his souffle because he decided half the country should risk death if they have an ectopic pregnancy within the wrong state lines. It's all very unfair to him. At least they could do is let him eat cake." Well, Dana Loesch reacted to that tweet, writing, "Ectopic pregnancies aren't denied treatment because they aren't viable pregnancies, as modern medicine can't solve the problem of transplanting a fetus to the uterus. You do much better without this blatant disinformation." The Morton Steakhouse incident, that is, didn't sit well with the deputy editorial page editor for the Washington Post either. Ruth Marcus is pro-choice, but shared this, quote, "The pickets at justices' homes, they primarily targeted Justice Brett Kavanaugh, are beyond the pale. As I've written before, they're unnecessary. Protesters can make their views amply known at the court itself. They are, if anything, counterproductive." And the group Shutdown DC has put a bounty of sorts on conservative justices, offering $50 to $200 for reports on their locations. Yep. The White House's stance on this has been that the president does not support the intimidation of justices, but they did not go so far as to saying that they should
heads
not
off of baby dolls in the streets and wearing bloody pants to cry for abortion. That's going to work.
Sure.
I promise.
All right.
So
well,
keep
interesting
doing
with AOC, by the way. She was cowering and scared in a different building.
Not in the
Capitol during the January 6th riots. And then she said she had to get mental health, and there was all this what does she call it? Mental health, self-help. I don't know. Like, she was so traumatized, and then she insisted that she was so scared. And not just scared of the rioters, but scared of the members of Congress on the Republican side, that she and the squad insisted on having a metal detector before they could even enter in to vote. And those, I think, they're still there. So, I mean, for her to say this about Justice Kavanaugh and mock someone who's had an actual, threat on his life.
All right, everybody, let's take a minute to look at today's sponsor, Serafina. If you guys don't drink this sparkling, delicious, bottled in Italy, you hear that? I want to shake it up just to do it again. Bubbles up, crisp, nice, beautiful taste. Man, you can see that carbonation right there, folks. You can't beat it. You can't live without it either. Serafina, folks. Get it today. With only, well, 0 fat. Only 10 milligrams of sodium. 0 carbohydrates. 40 milligrams of calcium. Contains no juice. I'm liking the sound of that, folks. Get it today. And back to the video.
Life at his home with somebody with weapons is unbelievable.
It's not a world of reality. It's a world of virtue. It's a world of outrage. It's a world of let me craft this way it needs to be to get people stirred up. As far as veterans go, y'all can have PTSD. We don't want it anymore. You can take it.
That's the word I was looking for.
AOC, take it, run with it. We don't need it.
Good point.
All right.
You remember when Donald Trump a couple years ago, 2-3 years ago now, said, they're tearing down statues of Confederate generals now, but tomorrow they're coming for George Washington.
He said it.
And Thomas Jefferson. He said it and he was right. And he was, not only was he right in the immediate moment, but what we're in the middle of right now is a slow motion cultural revolution as they attempt to tear down any reverence we have for our founding fathers and what they gave us. The latest example of that is on the cover of the New York Post this morning. The pursuit of wokeness, Thomas Jefferson's legacy dissed in his own home. I'll hold it up. So we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. The words of the Declaration of Independence written by Thomas Jefferson, our third president, an imperfect person himself, because we all are, and we recognize that. But recent visitors to Monticello, the estate he designed, where his library is, I've been there. It's a beautiful thing to see. Take your kids to. Have noticed that the whole tone of how Thomas Jefferson is described has changed. And it's overwhelmingly negative. You go to visit the legacy of Thomas Jefferson and you learn about what a terrible person Thomas Jefferson was. Here's a sign that greets visitors at Monticello when you arrive. It says, "Is all men are created equal being lived up to in our..."
And this ad
The great out
brought
there
to you by
is right out there.
You today.
Our own country today? When will we know when it is? And here's a quote from a visitor. William Bales of Chester, Virginia, wrote in an online review about visiting Monticello. Half of the comments on Jefferson were critical. Even my 11-year-old daughter noticed the bias. So guys, they're not just doing it in our classrooms and our textbooks. They're doing it in the places we visit and how they describe our founders.
Yeah, if you go to the gift store, and by the way, it's not limited to Montpelier. I visited many of these homes. I did a series for Fox Nation on America's First Ladies, and so I went to these homes, and that is definitely what I picked up from all of this, that there is a reorienting, reconstructing of the history to basically make sure that the idea that they had slaves is on the same level as what they did for our country, which is interesting because there were slaves, in the Middle East. There's slaves across, human history. I get that. It's a terrible history. We should talk about it. But we should not feel guilty or ashamed of our leaders when we go and visit the people who brought us the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. You leave feeling that way. By the way, Joey, before you go, when you go to the gift stores, you will find prominently displayed Ibrahim Kendi and Tisha Coates. All of their books on anti-racism are on display there.
Yeah, it's guilt forthright. Listen, if you go to Monticello, if you go to Mount Vernon, you can't visit those places without seeing where the slaves lived and the work they had to do and the impact they had. These were great men as far as their ideas go, but they were able to build this on the backs of slaves, and we honor that and we talk about that. That's different than rewriting the importance of Jefferson, the importance of Washington, or whoever it may be. And why have Monticello at all if you're only going to use it for grievance?
Yeah.
Celebrate the little part of these mostly men that was exceptionally good, and understand that none of them were perfect. And I tell you what, none of their leaders are perfect. I mean, you go down the line of any of our, and so
good point.
Socialists.
But we do have a statement from Jen Lyon, a Monticello spokesperson, says, "Our goal is to present an honest, inclusive history of Monticello in all aspects, as well as Jefferson's contributions to the founding of the country. And that's all good and well, but if you go there to take a tour and all they tell you is how terrible this person is, people are going to quit taking tours.
You come away thinking how terrible this country is. Pete, one of the things about your book that I love is that you go back and you look at the source of where's all this coming from. The boards of these, the boards of these, living museums, the homes of these presidents are being populated. This is a very diabolical plan on the part of the left. So what they've done is they've taken their donors on the left and they've populated the boards of these estates with leftists. And so you have Rubenstein, a private equity billionaire from the Carter administration, who, by the way, has pledged extensive investments into China. So this is a way to deflect, look at all this money I gave, and I'm on board with 1619, and I'm telling the true history of America and its terribleness and enslavement of people and how it's just not perfect. Don't look over here at all the money I'm making in China that actually has real life slaves in, with the Uyghurs.
Don't look over here at all the amazing things that Thomas Jefferson unleashed as well for generations of people. Right. And the beautiful words he wrote, even if he was a flawed person himself. You read that statement, Joey. Inclusive history of Monticello. It's always about inclusivity. It's the buzzword they use. And we fall into the trap because good, earnest historians who take care of Monticello sit there and they go, oh, you're right. You know what? We haven't included enough about the fact that he was a slave owner. So let's include more of that. And then the ideologues come in with their money and say, let's make it all about that. Yeah. And then pretty soon, good intentions of earnest historians become an agenda that 1776 was no good and we should talk all about 1619. And then you get kids coming through thinking Thomas Jefferson was a bad guy. And we all understand the flaws. Let's talk about the flaws. We get accused of wanting to whitewash or not talk about that. We will talk about that. We know that. That's a real deal. But making it about America being an evil place is when you get into the realm of a cultural revolution, which is where we are right now. Yeah. And you're exactly right. These boards have been taken over by leftists, and we're not paying attention.
Yeah, while we were sleeping. And you don't just walk away thinking that Thomas Jefferson's bad. You also think America's bad by default.
Not me.
Right. All right, well, still ahead. Education is top of mind for moms around the country as we head into the midterms. Our mom panel on how school issues could sway their vote. Back to Fox and Friends, the midterm elections are less than 4 months away, and education is on the top of many parents' minds. So could they become the new swing voter in November? Here to discuss our panel of moms, Carissa Meyer, Lisa Engelman, and Mary Beth Emmerich. I'll start with you. But first of all, good morning to all of you. I'm going to start with Carissa. Carissa, you have a child with special needs. So do I.
This ad is brought to you by Tattooed Chef. I actually invested in that company and lost money. But now would be a good time to buy. Tattooed Chef.
The great experiences you have in here.
Yeah, I've got
But when I do, I want it to feel just like this.
Yes. Really? I like it hotter. It's perfect in here.
I don't like it hot.
They brought the arcade to us today.
Yeah, they did.
Is it National Arcade Day?
I hope so.
Oh, we just decided to have an arcade. That's an even better reason.
And I like it that it's outside.
Weekend, it's outside.
Well, there's a basketball game over there. You're ready for that with your Jordans?
I got my sneakers. I got the Jordans. We got Papa Shot. We got skee ball. We got air hockey. We got cruising, some car race.
It's a car racing game. I've got that one. You guys can have the others. I'll take the car race.
All right. We've got interns. Now,
I can't call them interns.
Oh, is that
They're
wrong?
College associates.
College associates.
It's dignified now. I mean, I prefer interns.
I do.
I'll tell you what, they have a good work ethic, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit later in our talking point.
I mean, all those people that do stuff for me all the time, those are college associates?
Yes.
I just call them yes, sir, and yes, ma'am, because they're my bosses when they're giving me stuff and doing what I need them to do. So.
Yeah.
Well, it's great to have you, Joey.
It's fantastic.
We miss Will, but we love you. That's fair, right?
We do.
That is. Listen, nobody can replace Will. Nobody can replace you. But somebody has to sit in these seats when the two of you need a day off. And I'm honored to be one of a couple of guys that get to do it. So it's absolutely an honor to be here.
Great job.
All right. Well, while these guys are playing arcade games, my kids are in Wisconsin, where I'm going this right after the show, frankly. And there's Sean. Wow. And this is what we do in northern Wisconsin. So this is where I'm heading up to the cabin. Pete's been there with his kids several times. He knows it's just good, clean, all-American fun.
Oh, look at
and that's what we do up there, and I can't wait to get up there and see my kiddos and spend some time. I've been working hard here.
Now, I gotta say,
look at that.
Okay, good. I'm glad they showed that last video because
he's a great water
Sean
skier.
is a great water sportsman.
That's impressive.
And you choose that clip?
I know.
He's got hours
my kids posted this,
athleticism.
and so I know my kids posted it, so I put that up. But yeah, you know, I'll tell you, he's 50. He can still barefoot ski, and he's pretty
I've seen it. He's good, and I've tried off of your boat barefoot skiing, and I got up for like 2 seconds and wiped out.
He's also water skied too close to the shore and been yelled by my neighbors.
Yes, I have. Now, Joey, could you?
I'll be honest with you.
What would barefoot skiing look like? I mean, this is a fair question.
Yeah, has it been done?
You took my joke right away. I can't barefoot ski, but I guess I'd have to bare bottom ski. I don't know. Just kind of sit there and kind of lean back a little bit, let it pull me.
You know what you could do? You could do like the kids. You could tube, right? I mean, you have a lot of upper body strength.
I can do more than you realize. One thing I'll do is I can take a life vest, put it on like a diaper, and just kind of bob a little bit, you know? Anyway, I'm going to go off the rails talking about water.
Definitely invited to the lake. All right.
Let's go,
All right,
Joey.
so we're going to move on to some important topics here. There's a
I
leak
think it's important that he can sit there and be
that was leaked to
positive
the
about his
Washington
life.
Examiner, and it shows that 161,000 unaccompanied
You don't know,
migrant
Joey
children
Jones
are
lost his
expected
legs
to cross the border
giving
this
his
year.
life for this
And here's my
country.
thing, guys. When it comes to any numbers, I just expect that
Thank
whatever
you,
that
Joey.
is leaked is probably much higher than that.
That's a great point.
These are estimations, and so what we're dealing with here is a border crisis. I don't know if anyone knows that. I don't know if anyone in D.C. knows that, other than a few Republican congressmen like Chip Roy that keep telling our administration that. But if you listen to the Biden administration, they would say there's not a crisis. They would say that the border is closed. They actually say a lot of things that is not true. But 161,000 children to cross the border unaccompanied.
Alone.
And let's hope
That's
they
a
don't.
child human rights crisis.
And how many of those children will end up in Obama's cages?
Right. Well, you know what? I actually was in front. When I went to Uvalde, I went to see one of these detention centers, and they're guarded like, you know, this is the highest security prison. I mean, you cannot get near there. The mayor of the town isn't allowed in there. What we do know happens are some of those children who have been raped along the journey will end up in hospitals nearby having babies. You will find out that many, as we've seen video, abandoned by cartels in the desert when they're no longer of any use or they're a problem. They just leave them to die in the desert, wandering alone. Many are thrown over walls. We've seen footage of that. I've had DPS Pete send me video of 3-year-olds coming by themselves.
Were they bringing them water trucks? What is this?
It's a crisis.
There was that image last year. I believe it was a mother, it might have been a father, and a young child that drowned. And I'll tell you, I kept looking at that. I've got a 3-year-old daughter myself, and I just kept looking at it. I cried. Empathy is not what we're lacking. Common sense and the gall to do something about it is what we're lacking. I don't think there's a person on this network who doesn't believe that we need migrants to come into this country and become a part of our country and to make this country stronger. To have a ladder to climb, you got to have somebody on every run, and which means we got to have people to do every job. And migrants are going to be a part of that equation. But to do it the way our government is choosing to do it, and I'm not even going to really assign a party to this, to keep those people that come across the border in the shadows on purpose. You're not part of the American dream if you're not an American. You're not a part of this amazing system of government if you're not in the system. And so what we have now is not migration to make our country better. What we have right now is migration to take advantage of our country and to take advantage of those people.
Yeah, it's dispiriting because you mentioned the cameras inside the facilities. If this were the second term of the Trump administration, congresswomen and men would be lining up outside the facilities of child centers,
crying in front of fences,
crying and exposing the inhumanity of the amount of children being abandoned at the border and in custody of the United States. Instead, for this administration, it's all about what you can't see. And if you can't see it, then there's no headline. If there's no headline, there's no problem.
Yeah.
And if they could, they'd get rid of Fox News Channel because we're the only ones covering it anyway. And those numbers that number on that banner is absolutely staggering. 161,000 is what's estimated in 1 year alone of unaccompanied kids crossing our border. Of course, it's a crisis. It's more than a crisis. It's an invasion. And some are starting to suggest that the state of Texas could declare it an invasion and have constitutional rights that come with it. Now, Governor Greg Abbott on Saturday tweeted about what's happening. He said this. He said, today the Texas Department of Public Safety began arresting illegal immigrants and returning them to the border with Mexico. Biden's border policies are crushing local communities up and down the border. So he hasn't yet gotten to the point where he has declared formally an invasion, but you're starting to see Texas DPS
what is he waiting
doing
for?
what federal... I'm not going to be an apologist for doing it or not doing it. I think he should. But you heard Dan Crenshaw with us yesterday saying, well, if you do that and the federal government challenges it, then you have Texas DPS agents arresting and deporting who are then being arrested by the DOJ in the process. So how do you... But you almost want to have that standoff because of the crisis at this moment. Not a lot of reasons for excuses.
You see what's happening to these communities. And by the way, AOC, you're right, crying at the gates of this. And then I haven't seen her since. Since Trump left, suddenly... And the numbers have quadrupled or more.
It is
She's not there. I mean, she doesn't care. It's so obvious how phony she is. It's unbelievable. But again, I think you have to get back to why. Why are they doing this? Why are they opening our border? Why are they allowing 161,000 children to come under, total danger in order to get here alone in the hands of traffickers? Why are they destroying our communities? And they are being paid. We talked to this with Tom Homan. He said there are lots of groups, nonprofit groups that are pro-illegal immigration, many of them funded by George Soros and this open border type philosophy that he has. And they are the ones running this agenda. And you have to go, why are they doing it? Is it that they want...
You may not think of yourself as an athlete, but you do athletic feats. You swing, you block, you rush, you drive, you lift, you flip, and you tackle. So whether you're an athlete or not,
want this permanent underclass to, fund the lifestyles of the rich and famous? Is it that they think they're going to eventually get them out of the shadows and make them all citizens? I don't know what the reason is, but I'm one of those people that keeps asking why, because none of this makes sense to me.
It's certainly ideological, and I'm trying to be an honest broker. I also try to have a little grace when talking politics, because I do believe there are more honest players involved sometimes than it looks like, but I think it's across the spectrum of what you just talked about. There are a lot of people in Congress that don't have experience with this, but have very passionate opinions on it, and those are the problems we have sometimes. I think a lot of people in Congress don't understand the true effect of illegal immigration. I have an uncle and a sister that were T-boned and front-ended by illegal immigrants in my hometown that never had a driver's license and was never taught how to drive a vehicle, because my town is 78% Hispanic, and a majority of those now today are probably first-generation Americans, but their parents weren't. And really what has turned the tide, why I think they want to continue to import illegal immigrants that are ignorant to all of the partisan politics we have, is that most of those first-generation Americans are not on board for this anymore, because they look at their mom and dad and see how tough it was for them coming here illegally and living in the shadows, and they say, you know what, there's got to be a better way. And so they come here, the illegal immigrants come here, the kids they have here are American citizens. I went to school with a bunch of them in my town. They're tried and true patriotic Americans, and they look at what their parents went through and say, that wasn't right for my parents or this country. Let's do this a better way. And I think that scares Democrats, because they lose the monopoly on an entire, what they consider to be, class of voters.
Yeah, they certainly made that gamble. And Rachel, as you pointed out very, very well, the Hispanic vote instead trending in a different direction, which they did not expect. To another topic, though, you talked about part of the aspect of that migration or illegal immigration is the prospect of work for many people. Yeah. And some of that has to do with questions about why more of our own citizens are not working or working as hard as they had in the past. So we're about to enter a recession. I don't know if formally we've had 2 quarters of negative GDP or not, but if it's forecasted that we may, you know what happened under COVID. We're looking at inflation. You look at energy prices. Everyone's being hit hard. Well, there was an op-ed in the Federalist, which caught our eye, which tries to bring a better explanation to why this might be and why some of our work ethic has declined. Here's a portion of the op-ed. The decline of the American work ethic will exacerbate the oncoming recession. That's the headline. Here's a quote by Andy Puzder. It's hard to deny the reality that some Americans have clearly gotten used to not working and have chosen to live off the welfare that remains rather than return to the workforce. This is not a criticism of people genuinely in need of government assistance. We're a rich nation. We should and we do help those in need. But the able-bodied should work both for society's benefit and for their personal benefit, their dignity and sense of self-worth. President Clinton and Newt Gingrich affirmed this notion when they imposed work requirements for welfare recipients to great effect in the late 1990s. It's a simple notion. Those who can work should. Pandemic-era welfare enhancements still in place have aided the current disinclination to work ethic. Rachel, this is something you're pretty hot on this morning.
Yeah, I think everyone should read this article because what he's basically saying is we can eventually fix the economy, but we now have a generation of people who have gotten used to not working. And if you don't learn to work in your 20s, and I saw this in my own family, I have relatives who live in Spain, under socialist Spain, and there was a deep unemployment there. Some of it was, because there were no jobs, but also young people got used to not working. And there are a lot of young men in that generation who now just have learned to live with less. They don't know, if you don't learn how to work in your teens and in your 20s, you never learn how to work. Right now, all these jobs that teenagers used to do, lawns, pools, even babysitting. Ask young moms today how hard it is to find a babysitter. When I was a kid, that's all I did. My parents didn't even buy my clothes when I was in high school because I worked so hard on the weekends. I had my own money, and you learn how to work. And we're losing that. We're saying, you know what? You're a teenager. Your job is sports and being on a sports team. And these illegal immigrants are going to do the lawn work or going to do the pool or are going to babysit our kids. This is not the way America was a generation ago.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. A lot of the viewers understand my personal story is very different than some other people that get a job like this. And Pete, yours is different as a veteran. And Rachel, yours is different. We all come here from a different place. But just to clarify, I was born in a 1966 single wide. My dad laid brick and block, and my mom cleaned houses. My mom also was disabled, right? She had thoracic outlet, carpal tunnel. Her arms didn't work for many years of our life. She had surgery after surgery. She had Social Security disability, and she fought to get back to working. And then she did the jobs she could do to have dignity and bring that into the house. So when they say able-bodied means something different today than it did 20 years ago. I'm able-bodied for the job I do if it's my choice. It's not about income. It's about dignity. It's about self-respect and purpose in life. Mike Rowe talks about this. My dad is a brick and block mason, had more autonomy, more authority, and left a bigger impact on people's lives with an 8th grade education than a lot of people with a 4- and 6-year education and higher education now. And it's because of the passion he had behind his work and the necessity of it. We haven't just devalued the American dollar. We have devalued hard work. And we've taken a lot of dignity and respect that those people should have. Plumbers, welders, electricians, those jobs that we need. There's a lot of value in that. And we could change our education system to make those people learn those skill sets and also have an opportunity of running their own business successfully. And we could do it with just a little bit of work. So when we talk about paying for 4-year education, free college, how about providing education at the public school level on how to do some of these trade skills?
But how about just taking away some of the welfare benefits that were massively enhanced during COVID? So even though the Republicans removed some of them, a lot of them are still in place, Pete, and people are just learning to live on less. And there's this gig economy. They just kind of are floating through life, and that is going to have a huge impact on us.
For sure. Joey, beautifully said. You're exactly right. It does come down at the end of the day to hard work and work ethic, which as parents we instill in our kids, either the way we speak to them or the way we treat them or the example that we provide for them. As you're talking about your father, that's the thing I worry about the most with little kids, is that we're good at giving them great opportunities. How do I give them hardship and show them how to earn and work for a living?
The opportunity is only as good as the person taking advantage of it and the mentality, passion, work ethic they put into it. This is a country that gives you in return more than you'll put into it, but you got to be willing to put into it.
Yep. Andy Putzer, former CEO of CKE Restaurants, parent company of Hardee's and Carl's Jr. He knows what it means to build something, hire people, and he's saying, hey, we got to work at the top.
And not be able to hire people because no one wants to work.
And not All right. Great point. All right, turning now to a few additional headlines, 16 minutes after the top of the hour. Beginning with this, the family of a man beaten to death by a group of teens says they are still in shock over the senseless loss. We must warn you, this video is disturbing. The attack caught on camera shows the group of 7 teens smiling as they chased down and beat the elderly man with a traffic cone. The victim's niece saying yesterday she can't understand why anyone would do this. How about no good parents? She says, quote, "We all can't stop crying. Police are offering a $20,000 reward for information on the attackers." And a fire.
Just putting on leather and sitting on a fight doesn't make someone a fighter. And it's easy to.
In Nantucket causes extensive damage to the legendary 338-year-old Veranda House Hotel. Bystanders without safety equipment ran into the bed and breakfast, attempting to rescue guests before the fire department arrived. Local reports in Nantucket say the building partially collapsed. Other buildings in the area also caught on fire. Officials say 2 firefighters were treated for.
It does look like a nice area.
And the NEA, this is a teachers union, wants to replace the word mother with birthing parent in official contracts. But we ask, what would this mean for classic songs about mom? Hits like Stacy's Mom
That's such a good
by
song.
Fountains of Wayne would be Stacy's birthing parent. Hey Mama by Kanye West and Mother's Little Helper by the Rolling Stones would look very different if the NEA gets its way. Take a look at this possible list of songs in a woke world without mother. Stacy's birthing parents got it going on. Menstruating person's little helper.
Oh, man.
Hey, birthing person. Gestational parent told me not to come. And birth giver said. What has birth giver even said? Mother? Mama said. Birth giver said. No artists have actually suggested these changes so far, but we think it's coming.
No one's doing
Well,
that.
remember
No one's going along
also
with that.
Shania Twain that feels like a woman.
That's
I feel like a
exactly
woman.
right.
Feel
I feel
like
like
a
a birthing
woman.
person. No thank you.
Well, she says man, I feel like a woman. So they, I feel like a them. Is that what it would? I don't know.
Yeah, something like
You're
that.
right.
Yeah, they. I felt
Yeah.
Hey, I
like
feel
them.
like a birthing person.
A menstruating person or whatever they're doing.
Why of all the words we choose that one as the definition?
I don't know. I tell you, the world's gone crazy.
Yeah.
They're stupid.
I'm only
Pete.
3/4 of a them.
You know what you have to remember? You're not crazy. They're crazy.
That's
yeah,
right.
that's
When
right.
they call you crazy, no. You're not crazy out there.
Yeah.
As you laugh
They're
at
like,
us with us.
you feel like you're living in Alice in Wonderland. All right, watch this. Police taking down a.
Oh, so now
The
you're
Women's
saying
March
women?
taking to DC streets once again, this time demanding that President Biden do more for abortion rights, including additional executive action
Well,
for
it's
a
my body too, 'cause
declaration
I
of
wanna
a
be a
national
woman.
public health emergency. Here to react, former Planned Parenthood clinic director, now pro-life activist, Abby Johnson. Abby, what's your take on
Hi,
these
Abby.
protests?
Hi, Abby.
I mean, look, Rachel, it's like they can't figure out what they want. Okay, so originally they had said, well, look, we don't want the federal government to tell us what we can and can't do with our bodies. So the Supreme Court says, we agree. We're not going to tell you what you can and can't do with your bodies. We're going to take this back to the state. And then they said, no, wait, that's not what we want, right? And then they said, we want democracy. And so the Supreme Court says, yes, okay, you get democracy, right? You can make these decisions at the state level. And they're like, no, not that kind of democracy, right? Biden is very restricted as to what he can do at this point. This has got to be fought out at the state level. And they just don't like the way that things have played out. And so now they're protesting. What they should be doing is actually working to help women that are in crisis.
Right. It's interesting. You know, they say they want to help women, and yet they're throwing Molotov cocktails and trying to get all kinds of funding removed from pregnancy health centers that actually help women in need.
That's absolutely right. So, you know, we've got over 3,000 pregnancy resource centers in this country. They outnumber abortion clinics, I think now probably over 4 to 1. And, you know, these pro-abortionists are saying,
Because those people.
well, you know, what are you
at
doing to help women? And we're like, oh,
Would
well,
you
we've
just
got over
look at
3,000
it?
pregnancy resource centers. And they're like, well, where are they? Because we want to burn them down. I mean,
Right.
it's completely ridiculous. We're the ones that are helping women. We would love for them to join us and help women that are in need. Just on Facebook the other day, my organization, Loveline, needed to help a single mom of 6 children get a new car. We, in 45 minutes, raised over $10,000 to help this mom get a car. They could do that. They could be doing that too. We'd love for them to join us. But instead, they're sitting outside the White House doing nothing.
Yeah, the message to poor women is abort your child, not let us help you find a way to make a family or help you to have this child and raise it. How important is it to the pro-life movement? I mean, you're just a unique voice in the pro-life movement because you've seen this process, this procedure up close. How important is it for people to know your story, to know what you can see behind the curtain? Because we talk about abortion in terms of euphemisms and choice and life and not really what you know.
Well, I think that if people really saw abortion for what it is, I think that more people would be against it. I think one of the reasons that abortion continues to escalate in this country, I think one of the reasons that so many people are protesting against the overturning of Roe v. Wade is because you don't see the victim of abortion. You don't see this child being dismembered in its mother's womb. You don't see the body parts stacked on top of each other. I think if people could actually see the barbarity of abortion, if they could see how terrible abortion is, more people would be against it.
Wow, you're such an incredible voice, Abby. Your humility and your story and the way you've turned something so tragic in your past into something so positive is truly inspiring. Abby Johnson, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
All right, from combat to Congress. Up next, meet a veteran on a mission to flipper Indiana District red for the first time since 1931. And it's time for fun in the sun. Don't miss
our own boardwalk-style arcade right here on Fox Square.
First up, let's see who has what it takes for some skee ball.
Skee ball. All right. Now Rachel said because she's a good bowler, she's got a good shot at skee ball here.
All right.
9 balls. Check the score. I pride myself as a skee baller. All right. Oh, I got 2 4,000. I got. You can't swear on TV. This is not Chuck E. Cheese.
5,000.
Yeah. Oh, 4,000. Okay. 5,000. Oh, I'm a skee baller. You see it, Joey. Boom.
5,000.
Oh, I was cheering for Rachel.
Rachel, I'm sorry. It was a good try. Points for effort.
Sorry.
She does not like that.
All right, thank you to our friends at Betty's Houses. We'll be competing in more boardwalk games and arcade games all morning long.
All right,
to you, Joey.
I've got Rick next, and then I'm coming for you. All right. Countdown to the midterms is on, and our next guest wants to flip her Indiana District red, which has been blue since Herbert Hoover was president. Jennifer Ruth Green is a former military commander who is hoping to transition from combat to Congress after founding a nonprofit that helps at-risk youth. Jennifer, good morning. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Joey. Thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Hey, listen, this district, from what I understand, I think it's D+4, which means it's basically pretty even split. It leans a little bit Democrat. It's got a freshman Democratic congressman, and you think you can take this seat. Why is that?
I believe this race is clearly about the economy and about Hoosiers deserving better. We have a very unique opportunity because people see all across our district that failed leadership continues to just exude from our current.
Hi, I'm Barry, and I'm the founder of Focus Energy Drinks. And this is my daughter, Alex.
Hi, and we're going to show you how quick and easy.
No one cares.
Congressman, and the Biden-Mrvan agenda is consistently input into our system, and we see how those failures impact our pocketbook.
Well,
You know, you're absolutely right. The absolute
I'm about
most
tired of
important issue
that.
from poll after poll is the
All these
economy and
people
inflation. But we have other issues that a lot of Americans are concerned with. One of them is national
Too
defense,
much
national
on a
security.
Sunday
We look at our
morning.
military and we see leaders
Trying to
pointing
wake up.
towards social issues rather
Coffee.
than readiness.
Some
You're
eggs,
serving
breakfast.
still in the military. You have an
Be a lot.
illustrious career in the military. What do you think you can do from Congress to maybe change that path? Or do you
Can't
think it
even
needs to be
react
changed?
anymore. I mean, these people
You know,
are
I saw Speaker
nuts.
Pelosi tear up the State of the Union address on February 4th,
No one here
2020.
asking
And
questions.
that
So.
showed me that there was this clear
With that,
divide
you guys have
at
a
the
great
national
Sunday.
level. And
God
looking from an
bless.
international perspective, it's clear to see that our enemies look in and say, there's a point of weakness there. A house
Catch you
divided cannot stand. And
this
as a
week with
regular
Gutfeld.
citizen, as a military commander at the time, seeing the gravity of that failure